Hey, welcome to episode 21 of the Martial Arts Mastery Podcast. I am your host, Grandmaster Sean Field. We have special guests here today. We have Master Jean-Luc, also known as Sabanim, uh, Jean-Luc Lacombe, the Santos Martial Arts, um, previous Santos Martial Arts student, now owner of Brooklin Martial Arts. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast and having a chat with you today.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good. So, how I normally do things is we're just gonna like when you listen to plays, and we are just gonna have a conversation, talk about your martial arts journey, probably talk about your upcoming tournament, and kind of go from there. So, let's start right at the beginning. I know you've been at a couple different martial arts schools in your career, but let's start at the beginning and tell us a little bit about how you got started in martial arts and why, and we'll go from there.
Oh yes, sir. Yeah, I've had the privilege of being a lifelong martial artist. I originally started my martial arts journey between the years of 1999 and 2001. And the reason I give a bit of a range is because it took me a few tries before I got fully committed, fully on board. My sister, Jennifer Lacombe, she was a black belt in Taekwondo, and she was very much tried to push me into getting started. But as when I was young, it was a challenging thing, right? It's a very high energetic environment, a lot of noise. So for me as a young child, it just took me a few tries before I can kind of settle in, and then found an absolute love and passion for it. And I've been training ever since. And yeah, my original school that I started at was a small club called Quest Martial Arts. And it was originally founded by our shared Grandmaster, Veronica DeSantos. And then later on, it was taken over by several of her students. So I had the opportunity to learn her style of training before I had the chance to meet her. It wasn't until roughly about 2005 when I switched over to her main location, her main school. And right after shifting over, that's when I started doing my black belt training. And I think it was around the time that I got the chance to meet KJN and Veronica DeSantos that I felt empowered by the martial arts. And from there, it really picked up, and got the opportunity to help on the floor as an assistant instructor. From there, working my way through my own personal training, going through black belts, and eventually settling into the role as an instructor. Um, mhm.
That's something that's right off the bat. There's something I did not know. I did not realize that Washington had or how founded West Martial Arts. I thought that was something completely separate.
Yeah, no, she originally founded the school and helped design and everything, but it was eventually taken over by several students. The main instructor that I worked with was Mr. Kim, who was a black belt under Kwon Nim. Yeah, and around the time that I shifted over, the school was going through a change in instructing, and it was actually a point where I almost left martial arts entirely. It was very hard to lose a coach that you built this relationship with, and kind of lost a little bit of steam. But I was very privileged in that my sister especially did not give up. She originally switched over to DeSantos, and then eventually they brought me along. And one of the amazing things that I remember was that the first time that I walked in, I actually met a lot of my black belt teammates. Right, but at the time, I didn't know we were going to go through black belt together, but they went out of their way to come up, introduce me, and they made me feel incredibly welcome right from the get go. And then next thing you know, we were going to be teammates going through our first black belt cycle together.
Yeah, I got interesting. I think it's a very common occurrence when people join martial arts and then the school goes under or it's a change or maybe they had a bad experience at a martial arts school and they just continue their training for whatever reason, and they're missing out on so much if they had gone to another school or you hear that a lot. Like, that's why I always wonder like when people do go to beyond, I'm gonna say, bad school for lack of a better term, and they have really bad experience because of a certain instructor, we thinking that that's how all martial arts schools are, and they don't realize that maybe there's an opportunity somewhere else for them. It's kind of a shame.
It absolutely is, and like the biggest thing that I would advocate for any for the listeners out there that are considering martial arts, is to like don't give up on it. It's good to have the opportunity to go and right watch classes, get to kind of experience the environment and the community that is based around the schools. I know we're both big on building that community. That's why we have leadership teams and we help right foster a lot of the young people that are coming in, and they do a big part in helping create continue that excitement and that passion for martial arts training and creating that welcoming environment. And I know, and in that case, the fact that Kwanjin worked with a lot of her young students and taught them right how to be welcoming, how to create a community, how to support each other. Right, we always say we don't give up, we team up, and I felt that within the first day that I walked in, and that motivated me as well. And it's something that I remember as an instructor. That's definitely an environment that I want to create. Is something a place where we can challenge people to be the best they can be, but create it in a way where it's welcoming, it's inviting. People want to come to class. They're excited about coming in, and they get to team up together, and they have a place where they feel welcome, and they have a place that they right? Maybe they had a hard day at school or a hard day at work, or they're not quite fitting in, but they know that when they come to class, they're going to have a great time, and they're going to be amongst people that are there to support them and want to see them thrive.
Exactly. I mean, well, I know our Quantum school, your school, my school, we also have a leadership team where our students are going through that leadership process of learning how to, you know, go talk to people at the door when they first come in, make sure the new students are feeling welcome, make sure that they're able to follow along with what's going on in class. Like, yeah, like we spend a lot of time with our higher belts and our black belts, to make sure that they're fostering the next generation of students. I mean, I think that's extremely important because you and I both know, and Quantum will say, we, ca- we think that everybody on the planet should do martial art. Like,
Absolutely.
world would be a lot better if everybody knew some form of martial art. And then also going back to a little bit earlier about like again, if a certain school doesn't fit your personality or your vibe, I had somebody in last night ask me some questions about martial arts and what we do and want to know like the difference between like Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai and whatever. And I kind of got the gist of talking to the gentleman was he wasn't like a grappling style. He would rather have a stand-up style.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Everybody, there's certain people that are drawn to, the sparring, physical stand-up side. Some people are more drawn to the grappling side of martial art. But then there's also people that prefer the Filipino martial arts where you're doing a lot of weapon stuff, right? You just kind of find what specifically you like. And I know, like I said, you and I, and if you watch them, we have like kind of a mixed style where taekwondos are big, but we're also adding little elements of jiu-jitsu or kabuto or arnis or whatever, and we try to
Mhm.
combine them so that students have a good education, at least a little bit or anything besides the base martial arts that we teach.
Absolutely, and I think it really comes back to just the fact that we're excited to learn, right? And that's what a martial arts journey is about. It is about constantly learning and growing and striving to better yourself, right? We always say, right, we strive for personal excellence or black belt excellence, right? You'll see them interchange depending on the school, and that's exactly it. It's just the opportunity to get as much exposure, experience, right? We've had the wonderful opportunities of connecting with several schools, trying to create opportunities to cross train, and just I think having that open minded approach, it just gives us more opportunities to develop our experience as martial artists and as well as our students as well. I know you've encountered this, and I have before. Like there are definitely coaches, instructors out there that are closed minded about like it's this style, it's my school or nothing, and
Mhm.
and I think it's a very limited approach. So I always am excited at the opportunities where we get to team up and we get to share our love of our sport. And there's always little bits that you can take from different styles, from different instructors, different schools. Mhm.
Exactly, and like I said, you can have it's great. You need to have your base style, whatever your school is. If it's Taekwondo, it's karate, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, you have to have that core program or that core style, and then yeah, then you can add other element. I've always said for years, martial arts is all under one umbrella, and no matter what, regardless of what you study, it's all the same thing. That some style specialize in weapons, some style specialize in graphics, some are Taekwondo is more kicking based, karate is more upper body based. But it all comes to the same core, and there's only so many ways that you can move your body. But also within modern martial art, a lot of modern style is all dictated by either rule or strategy. So
Mhm.
look how many different like sports crowding, right? Like you're hosting your tournament here in a couple weeks on point sparring. There's so many different circuits that have different interpretations of sparring, like continuous sparring, kickboxing sparring, point sparring, and even with just point sparring, depends if you're like NASCAR or ISKA or the ABCTF or some of the different European leagues. They all have a slightly different interpretation of what sports karate or even point sparring is.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, and at the end of the day, the more right, and I think you would agree with this is like we love all sorts of sparring, all types of sparring is good sparring at the end of the day, right? And like if you look at especially a lot of the fighters in Europe, for example, a lot of them will jump in and they'll do point sparring, they'll do continuous, they'll do kick light, like they'll switch between even different styles and have a chance to kind of grow their experience. Anytime that you get to train is a great opportunity. But yeah, we're excited at the idea of like the different styles of sparring offer different things for athletes, and there's different experience levels with it, right? You're helping me put on our tournament in a couple weeks on March 23rd, which we're calling the Brooklyn Blitz, and that's meant to be a developmental series and an opportunity for new athletes to come into the sport. Right, we picked point sparring just in particular just because it's a very good entry level into the world of sparring. Right, and even then you could take point sparring to a whole nother level, like those that are professional in point sparring. There's like some of the fastest athletes you'll ever see, and just working on that timing and that quick entry in. And that's a skill. That's a skill that's even used in UFC fighters, right? They have to work that engagement coming in, coming out, and that's something that's specialized in the point sparring world. But
Yeah, I mean, if
you
you
have
look
to
at
branch out.
bringing that up, look at like professional athletes, professional fighters that started out just in point sparring.
Hmm.
UFC, you got George St. Pierre, one of the crazy legends. You have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson from Georgia. He was a point fighter before becoming a professional kickboxer, moving on to MMA. You have Ross Levine, Raymond Daniels.
Yeah,
Oh, I can go on and on. All these guys that actually
absolutely, legends.
started point fighting down in the ISKA in Florida that were point fighters that went into continuous sparring. Then they branched off to like different forms of kickboxing. I know some have done MMA like Bellator. Even some of them are fighting or have been champions in karate combat as well. But point sparring is the foundation for a lot of these athletes. Like I said, it's point sparring it really helps develop the quickness and getting in there, learning how to close the distance with splits, uh, or using those entry techniques. And then you got continuous sparring, which is more about getting in, but then you also have the opportunity to counter strike. So if somebody hits you,
Mhm.
you can hit back, versus point sparring, whoever gets that lands the shot first, they stop it, they award the point. So, there's different ones. And then you got kickboxing, kick light, there's sports MMA, which is basically like uh point style sparring with a little bit of grappling and a little bit of submissions in there. Um, yeah, it's great. I think too many people will look at point sparring and they don't really see what it can become or that it's a gateway to other styles of sparring. Actually, even down the U.S. Opens at ISKA, you actually have a division between point sparring and continuous sparring, they have class sparring. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Class sparring is like point sparring that you you have to deliver a combination, and before you disengage, they award you
Mhm.
points on combination, and it's very similar to how they score point sparring, but it's not necessarily like full continuous. So it's kind of like a gateway. So if you wanna go, if you're not quite sure about point sparring, you go for continuous. You start with point, move on to class. It's kind of like the intermediate, and then you can move on to continuous. It's kind of a cool little thing that they developed years ago.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it's great, and it's cool to see how you can build it up, right? And that was kind of our motive, right? I'm still running a fairly new school, and I'm very community based with what we're doing, and we were talking about this in the past too. We're just trying to find opportunities for our students to kind of get in the door and get started, right? There's so many major, large opportunities, and a big competitive scene, but it's how do we get our athletes excited about it? How do we get them started? And that was kind of the motivator behind putting on this event. And you, as my mentor, help motivate me and give me that push to start organizing, get it going, and which I'm very appreciative, and we're very excited to see it come together and to see
Well,
a
I think
lot of
I
new athletes.
kind of flat out told you to do it. Like,
Yeah, you did.
awesome. That's what Quantum tells me to do at the same time, right? We all have mentors who just say, no, you're just gonna do it. There's no thinking about it. Just do it. We'll figure it out, right? Sometimes there's that saying, there is no such thing as the perfect time. The perfect time is now. If you want to do something, start it now. Don't wait until you have the money. Don't wait until the time is perfect. And there's only one time, now, right? I think that's a very
Absolutely.
good one. So, but now you're talking about like this is like an entry level tournament. Yeah, but it's also there's gonna be some seasoned competitors as well. But you and I were just talking about like some of the inner circuit things. Some of the circuits get really expensive to start
Yes.
out, like $75 an event. And if
Mhm.
you lose one match, and especially if you wait all day for one match and you happen to lose, you don't get a lot of experience. You spent at least $75 plus travel, your day, food, whatnot, versus you're doing like what's interesting about what you're doing is a double elimination tournament. So you'll guarantee at least two matches. So if you lose your first match, you get thrown into a secondary bracket, and hopefully you fight yourself back up to the championship in that division. But it just allows people to guarantee at least two matches, and the pricing is pretty reasonable to get started. So that gives the athlete the opportunity to do it reasonable. Like my tournament is always the same thing as well. Like pricing is pretty reasonable compared to like I don't know, like when I go down to US Open, they're looking at 75. I think it's got up for like 90. I think it's like
Mhm.
$95 for first event and 75 for each additional one and whatever. And then like Waco, Canada is like 75, I think, per event. Um, yeah, so I mean, having something that's affordable, but at the same time gives your athletes more than one opportunity to start. I know one of my athletes earlier or yesterday asked me what I think he should do at my tournament in May. And he likes to spar a lot. I said, well, you have continuous sparring, you have point sparring, and if you want to add one more, go ahead and do the point stick fighting. Like
Mhm.
there's three opportunities to spar at my tournament. So I think that's important too, is to give people there's flag sparring, but most adults don't do that, but there's four opportunities to practice different ways of sparring, and there's different ways of strategy and play and so on.
Absolutely. So many different takeaways and so many different great opportunities. And yeah, as you mentioned before, that was a big motivator for us for doing the double elimination. Is we just wanted to give our athletes coming in as much chance to learn from the experience, right? And that double elimination offers that. Like I had a few of my some of my students that were new to the world of sparring. We had them coming down to they did one of their first tournaments, and I had literally both of them come up to me afterwards after their first match, and they were really grateful for the experience that they had. They enjoyed it, but they both said, "I wish I had one more match." And I just because I felt like I had to get that first one out of the way, and now I feel like okay, I understand now what the expectations are, what it feels like to be in the ring. And it was a bit of a bummer that they didn't get that opportunity at that particular event. So that was part of the motivators. We wanted to give our guys at least a chance to get a few matches in. And on top of that, we have an amazing special guest. Right, we mentioned her before. Both of one of our grandmasters, Quentin and Veronica DeSantos, who is a legend in the point sparring world, and one of Canada's #1 ranked female fighters. She's going to do a workshop with all the athletes before we even start the tournament. So that alone is a great learning experience. And then on top of that, you get the chance to compete in a double elimination style event.
Well, yeah, to have a legend, so some of the strategies and probably different combinations, whatever she's going to share, those athletes can apply it instantly. It's like, well, a
Absolutely.
couple weeks ago, when you came down with a couple of your students, we had Master Greg Hiltz from up in Deep River, Ontario, and he was doing paddock stick fighting, and he was, talking about a couple of different combinations. And I know when I just started one of my junior black belt, I was literally instantly doing that combination. And I'm like, oh my god, it works. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's great to have that proof that okay, you have a legend, somebody that really knows what they're talking about. They tell you something, you instantly apply it probably within an hour or two, and it's working. It's like aha moment. That motivates students too. It's like, okay, our instructors really know what they're talking about, and this is actual real life application, at least in a sports setting, right? Now, like you said, now when Quantum and Veronica Santos was sparring back in the 70s, 80s, even early 90s, the boys sparring was a different world back then.
Was
It was like today, it's a little bit lighter contact. I'm not gonna say light, but lighter compared to when she was sparring, where there was less equipment, and when they made the contact, you heard that hard smack because they hit hard. Uh, not sometimes knockouts were a thing, and they just woke you up and you continued on. And the blood gut era, like Bill Wallace would say, it's kind of crazy that, but yeah, like I said, people don't realize
Mhm.
that she's in that class of Bill Wallace, Chuck Norris,
Absolutely.
Billy Blanks, Joe Corley, Chef Smith, I can't think of some of the other guys at the moment, but yeah, she was like all over North America, down in well, she was on the what was it, the Atlantis fighting team or Atlanta fighting team?
Yeah, it was the Atlantic karate team.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so they and right, so they it was like one of the first professional teams out there, right? There are a lot more competitive teams now, but it was one of the first at the time, and she was one of two Canadians that were selected to be part of this team,
Mhm.
and they would travel the circuit, right, the tournament circuits, and right jump in any event they could, and yeah, and well, just like you were mentioned before, right, you have to have that level of respect for the pioneers of the sport, the early ones, because right as a time, it's almost a little bit of the Wild West.
Mhm.
And you can look at that even with like UFC, for example, and or boxing, even those early days. Nowadays, where they have so many measures and things that are in place to really take care, really make sure that the athletes are in good hands, and that's something I know we're striving to do with their officiating. Is right, we want to make sure these guys have a good experience in it, and they're going to be taken care of. Right, they're going to get a chance to push their training, but we're doing it in the safest, right, and best way for them to get a good learning
Well,
from the
that's a
event.
good point right there too. 'Cause I know in my earlier competition career, I would like literally go off to a tournament by myself and compete just to check out the vibe of that
Mhm.
tournament because like I don't want to expose my students to tournaments that are sometimes maybe beyond their level or maybe there was the the officials were biased towards certain schools, and we all know that happened, or maybe certain tournaments were too rough and the officials weren't controlling the ring and stuff. So I did that quite a bit, but it's nice to know that we can, like I said, what you and I are doing is develop a tournament where we know it's going to be a safe environment for the student. That's to me that's an extremely important thing. Is safety first. But going back to again the team that Quantum was on, like that, put it in today's perspective, that's like a team Paul Mitchell team
Absolutely.
or Team Revolution or trying to think of some of the other ones that are. I've seen so many, I can't remember all of them right at the top of my head, but I mean, yeah, like that was the level of team, like that would have been like the original Paul Mitchell type of team, with Chris Rapport and some of those other guys. But let's go back to you.
Mhm.
So you said you went for your first black belt in 2005, you said?
2006. 2006 is when I earned my first degree black belt. Um, yeah, I am now a fourth degree black belt. I had to ask my assistant instructor. I was like, "When did we get our black belt again?" It was I didn't realize how long ago it was, but I earned my fourth degree black belt in 2018 under KJN Veronica DeSantos. And at the time, that was when I came on board as her head instructor. So I had pivoted and what got set up as the head instructor for school, learning kind of the ins and outs of what it means to run the floor of the martial arts school, starting to learn some of the business aspects. Right, that's the thing when you're a part-time instructor, right? I was very lucky to learn how to teach on the floor, how to manage the floor, and I did that side by side with KJN, which was an amazing learning opportunity. But coming on board as the head instructor, you had to learn that other side, and what it means to create a community, and what it means to not only bring people into our world, but we want them to feel fulfilled with their training. We want to retain our students, so that way we can again grow and build and share these empowerment moments with others. Yeah, so I had that opportunity to be her head instructor for several years up until COVID hit, and then as you know, we all had to pivot and change a little bit, and
Mhm.
that's when I moved out this way. And I was presented with the opportunity of taking over Brooklin Martial Arts and getting my program started back up.
For sure, and then, yeah, you got your first degree in 2006. I went and tested for my fourth degree in 2007, now that I got that timeline straight
Mhm.
in my head. So yeah, so I remember when I was testing for fourth degree, that's why I remember meeting you for the first time, and I did tell the story to you, I thought you were a little bit of a shift high in transit, because the reason why I'm gonna say that is because yeah, you kind of came in with a little more intensity, but see, there's a difference because you're mainly ITF Taekwondo and also with the Shotokan background, which tends to be a little bit wider stances versus I come from a World Taekwondo background, our stances are a little more upright. And I just remember when I was doing we are doing some kind of blocking drill or punching drill in the horse stance, and you came by and gave me a little bit of attitude about my horse stance. I was like, I'm like in my head, like, what the hell is this little shit? I'm over fortunate here, like, what the heck, right? But that just stuck in my head. Like, I didn't tell you that story, but it's kind of funny. That's how we originally met, and obviously we've done some stuff throughout the year. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how you meet and then evolve. So now, but yeah, so it's interesting to see how back then you were a little more intense, a little more but then once you kind of got into that leadership role and head instructor role, you kind of have to change things a little bit, right? You gotta realize people are people, and you gotta be, I don't want to say nicer, but you gotta be a little more outgoing with them. There's a different approach. You learn a different approach to teaching when you kind of got into that leadership role versus when you were just young and hot and trot. That's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
Oh, absolutely, right, and that's the thing, like, I was definitely a young person growing up in that, and there was a lot of learning, and growth moments, throughout the time, and, um, I was very privileged to have someone like Concha Veronica DeSantos as my mentor, in the instructing side of things as well. She used to, and you do the same, love putting me on the spot, and it was actually a great thing. I know at the time, and right, I am learning more about right with mental health and anxiety. I definitely had a lot of that going into it. So I used to have classes planned down to the minute, And I remember my first time ever teaching an adult class, and I want to say 16 at the time. So I already went into it a little intimidated at the fact that I'm a young person going in to teach a bunch of adults, and I had everything down to the minute. Just wanted to make sure everything was perfect. And Kwajin came up to me, I want to say 10 minutes before it was time to teach. Right. I had already gone over the floor plan with her, and she's like, "Yeah, you're gonna change this. You're gonna do this instead. I want you to do this." And I remember like I got 10 minutes before I gotta go on. And but in retrospect, she was 100. She, as always, she's 100% right. She saw the energy of the class. She saw the needs of the students that were coming in and adapted the plan on the moment. So
Mhm.
we had a lot of moments like that, and you had to learn how to adapt. So it's finding that balance between, it's like, okay, you have your game plan, we have our set things, but you have to be able to be flexible, be fluid, and be able to see what are the needs of the people that are in the room, right? What is it that maybe if we're trying to get someone ready for grading, what is it that we might need to do a little bit more work on, right? We use gradings, testings as an opportunity, not just to test students, but to check in with ourselves and check in on the floor. Where is it that it's like, okay, our self-defense needs some work, so that's going to gear our next class plans going forward. So it's having that open mindset, right? And you have to learn. It takes time. It definitely took me a lot of time to kind of develop that.
Yeah,
Um,
and you even have the ability to just, I mean, as you go through class, sometimes the vibe is not, you're just not feeling the vibe. The vibe's a little bit lower, you want a little more energy. Okay, I gotta switch up to a different drill and
mhm,
change the pace a little bit. Or, okay, I'm not liking how that self-defense is going right now. How can I mix it up a little bit to make that same technique a little more exciting or whatever? Like, yeah, it's the same thing in life when you're dealing with people or a situation at work and something's not quite right and something got thrown at you, you have to have the same mentality. Okay, how can I change it for the positive? What needs to be worked on? Instead of looking at the negative, you gotta look at, okay, you gotta look at the solution. What is the
mhm,
solution? What can we do here? And then something martial art is one of those things. Well, and then again, martial art teaches that even when you're sparring or grappling, and you have a, okay, I got a certain strategy I'm gonna work on. Oh crap, that strategy's not working. I gotta change it on the fly. Especially when somebody's punching or kicking at you, you literally gotta do it on the fly.
absolutely. I'll share this story with you because I remember that I had a very distinct moment when it kind of clicked, right? The importance of being, I guess, a leader in terms of when it comes to black belt training or when it comes to being an instructor. And it was around the time I was going for my third degree black belt, which was 2011. And I was right at that time, like I felt I was in really great shape. I was really pushing my training. Right. I remember I was doing a lot of like cross training with doing like weights and stuff at the time. So I felt at the time I was like really, really, really pushing. I was really driven. And every time we had an opportunity to do a test, or I would always go to my coach and say, "What is it that you want to see from me? Right? What is it that you would like to see? What is it that I need to work on to improve?" And every time Guanjin would look at me and all she would say to me was, "I want to see you step up as a leader."
Mhm.
So I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Is my form? Do I need to work on my form? Does my kick need to be a little higher?" Right, right. Always go in thinking of it as like, "What is the skill that I need to clean up?" And she would always flip it back to me and say, "I want to see you step up as a leader." And it wasn't until we were about to go into our power weekend, our black belt testing, that I looked at our team and I saw that a majority of them were the same age as my first degree team. Like we had a very young team when we went for our first degree black belt, and I was looking at the group that was there, and that's when it kind of clicked to me. It's like I'm obviously want to get the best out of my training, but I have a responsibility to those guys, right? To make sure that we make it a positive experience for them, right? I wanted to make sure that they felt motivated. If they were losing a little bit of energy, we're right there to pick them back up, and that creates that environment where we're supporting each other and empowering each other. And I realized that that's a responsibility that you have when you're in those senior roles or when you're in that role where it's like, okay, I have a lot to give in this position. So that's what I got to do at this moment.
Yeah, and I got a lot of that. I know it's the same thing with our black belt testing, whatever. Like, if you're the highest rank, you're supposed to be setting the example and being the leader. But at the same token, if you're just even one or two belts higher than somebody else, you can be a leader to help them without having necessarily a leadership role or an official title, like, you know, of a certain black belt or a certain instructor, uh, aim and squashing them, stomp on them, swoop on them, whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity for people to lead, just by lead by example. Like, just, be the, like I tell the student, be the energy that you want everybody else to be in the room. I said, like,
Mhm.
I always use the example, just if I'm counting, how am I counting for when we do our poop today? How not do whatever? How am I counting compared to somebody else? If you got that nice loud counting, there's energy behind the count. People are going to perform their poops there and their kana or patterns or forms better versus somebody that's kind of quiet. No, you got to be the energy and we'll respond. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Where's your hand behind your back, sir? That's what last one. That's one, sir.
Mhm.
That energy, that those little things like that, you need to be the leader in that. Or like just when we're instructing a technique and the higher belt automatically go down on one knee and set the example for the other one. Like you can be a leader regardless of the rank. I think some people kind of feel that you have to have an official title or you have to be of a certain rank to fulfill that leadership position. But no, it could be a white belt that's been around for a month, and a new white belt comes in, and they're like, hey, they're automatically helping the new white belt because they were in that
Mhm.
position a month ago.
Yeah. I'll share this. I just a breakthrough that one of my leadership team members had. He's currently testing for his first degree black belt right now, and it was the same thing. He was starting to help me out on the floor, and he really stepped up in terms of volunteering. So I was trying to help grow him into becoming hopefully a future instructor. And as he was coming to class, I would always push him to like, hey, I want you to go give those kids, give them some high fives. Go introduce yourself. Go welcome, right? And try to. He was a very shy person. He loved his training. He was a very sharp, but it took him a little bit. He always felt nervous whenever he approached someone, just having just a simple conversation. And but I kept trying to challenge him. I want you to find opportunities to compliment, find the good, high five, just find a way to motivate the students that are on the floor. And but it's, as you know, as an instructor, it's like, okay, yes, yeah, 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 they hear what you're saying, but it's not necessarily resonating. And at one of our gradings, I couldn't have scripted it this better. It was like one of the gradings, one of the families came up with their child, and they said, we really appreciate what you do, right? Your leaders, and they wanted to the student I'm referring to. Oh, he was amazing, amazing role model to our kid. He loved coming to class, and he always wanted to impress him. And she said he even cut his hair just to look like you. That's what they said to my assistant instructor, and
Mhm.
that's when I could see the light bulb moment go off. And I told him, I'm like, this is the opportunity that you have, right? You have this opportunity to influence these young people in such a positive in a positive way. And it was that moment that he clicked, that he realized that it's like, okay, yeah, it is important, right? To do things like check in and motivate and high five, and yeah, it keeps them all excited about being there. And we do really have an amazing opportunity to do some good.
Yeah, that's the same thing that we do with our leadership team. We discussed that, like when the new students are coming in, makes them feel welcome. Or even students that been around a while, when they first come in and you're standing around, go say hi to them, ask them how their day was, compliment on something. Actually, I was listening to Chip Townsend has a podcast called the Team Chip podcast. And I was listening to it earlier on the way back from picking up some supplies from my supplier earlier, and he has this thing called parents, and one of the parents is supposed to be, I can't remember, like P for something, A for something, REN, and then the one thing was A for affection. So like, it's not everybody comfortable with just complimenting somebody. So he said like, learn just go up to somebody and compliment them. You don't necessarily have to sit there and engage in a conversation, but just
Mhm.
go up to them and say, hey, that's a really cool jacket you have, or you only got a new haircut today, it looks great, or oh, that was just a really good front kick, or whatever, like something small, right? And that small term of affection or that small compliment might have been the only positive thing that person got all day. We're always bombarded with so much negativity on social media and the way the world is, well, the way North America is right now with
Mhm.
what's going on politically. There's a lot of negativity going on, and people at work and maybe bullying at school, or even dealing with your parents or dealing with your children or your spouse. There's been a lot of negativity, and then you come into the martial arts school, and one person, says one nice thing to you, and that can change your whole outlook for the rest of that day, right?
Absolutely. And I right from a personal example, that's what I experienced going through martial art training. I had a lot of challenges in school, and I remember as I was growing up, not quite feeling like I fit in. I always felt a little different, and I definitely had challenges on the academic side. But for me, everything changed when I had the opportunity to start my black belt training. And part of it had to do with the empowerment that came through martial arts, right? Martial arts was the place that I loved going. It felt like a home away from home. It was a place where I felt comfortable. But at the same time, it was a place where I got challenged to be the best that I could be. And that was the thing. I was like, with Guanjin, there was right. She always expected you to bring your best, right?
Mhm.
And wouldn't cut you slack. If she knew you, she always had a good sight of saying like she knew when you were holding back or when you had more to offer, and would always positively encourage you and challenge you to be the best that you could be. And that is a form of empowerment, right? It is all empowerment built off those little victories. And having a coach and having an instructor that would find those victories and challenge you to be better, well, that carries over, right? So as I started developing and getting a little bit more sharp in my martial arts training, it carried over to how I was socially. It carried over, especially with school. I went from being a D student to an A student, and I don't think it's because I suddenly became more intelligent. I think it was just because of the attitude and the mindset and that developing that personal belief. But it takes someone having your back. It takes someone believing in you first for you to then teach a person how to believe in themselves. And that empowerment is something that martial arts absolutely offers. It's at its core and what's behind the physical training.
And then also, like, just the physical training aspect of it, it teaches you discipline. Like,
Hmm.
how you are on the mat should be how you deal with the rest of your life. So whether it's school, work, relationship, you're all in. So when you're in martial art, you're supposed to be all in for that 45 minutes or that 1 hour class. It's just you, the mat, the training. There's nothing else. The world does not exist. It should be the same thing when you go to work. You're focused 100% on work. If you're in a relationship, you're focused on the relationship. If you're a parent, when you're with your children, it's not always about the quantity of time, it's about the
Hmm.
quality of time. So if you're, whatever, your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you're dealing with your child right now, whatever area that you're dealing with in that specific moment, it's gonna be that focus of that time. Martial art is one of the best things I think for that is going through all that. So now, so again, you mainly Taekwondo with a little bit of the Shotokan influence from Quantum which is black belt in both. I know there for a little bit during COVID, you also before you kind of took over your brother-in-law's frozen martial arts, you were studying a little bit of Muay Thai as well. So what was it that maybe drove you to at least try a different martial art, or at least Muay Thai, just for that little bit before kind of coming back to the Taekwondo side?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now at the time, because we were coming off COVID, and I definitely went through a pretty radical life change during the COVID crisis, and I at a point had to make a decision to kind of switch and change things up. That was part of the reason why I moved out of the city. Like I grew up, I was born and raised in Toronto, and now I live out in the Bowmanville area. And when I made that switch over, I wanted to take the time to prioritize myself, right? Really, just I had the opportunity to really drill and focus on my training, and right, I definitely went all in. At the time, there was no thought of, oh, I'm going to run a school. I'm going to run a martial arts program, right? I thought at that point, it was just everything was changing up. So I didn't have Brooklyn martial arts on my radar at all. What I still had a love and passion for martial arts training, and I always knew I would be involved in some way. I just at the time didn't know what that was going to look like. And I was looking at local gyms in the area, and one of the local Muay Thai schools was the one that I was really excited about, right? And I wanted to do something different. I wanted to add on top of the skills that I developed through my martial arts training. One of the thoughts I had was low kicks, right? I had gotten the opportunity to see low kick sparring, but it's not something I ever got the chance to train in. Like I never learned how to check a kick or right. We always did kicking above the belt. So in my mind, I'm like, and I just felt like that was a missing tool set in the toolbox, and I wanted to get that opportunity to learn that. That was part of the reason why I was intrigued about learning Muay Thai. And yeah, I absolutely loved my time training it. I'll shout out the school. It was Redemption out here in Bowmanville. Absolutely great gym. The coaches were fantastic, very knowledgeable. I absolutely enjoyed coming in and getting some good quality workouts. Yeah, it was. I got the chance to do that, and then from there, I had a career pivot. And at the same time, that was when the opportunity to open Brooklyn came up. It was just coincidence that there was a lot of change happening around the same time. And when I had the opportunity to take over the Brooklyn martial arts program, I jumped on it. I was excited at the prospect of building a program from scratch.
Yeah, so you've been running Brooklyn for what, about 3 years now ish?
Yeah, officially about 3 years. And just for some context on Brooklyn Martial Arts, Brooklyn Martial Arts was founded by my brother-in-law, Sabnam J.
Mhm.
My brother-in-law also trained under Veronica DeSantos. That's actually how my sister met Sabnam J. They actually got connected when we did the move over to Quanjim School. So they had moved out of the city prior, and he started up his program in 2012, and it's a community based program. So we're partnered with a team called Community Connection. They essentially do the logistics for community based programs for the town of Whitby. So they got connected up. So he got contracted in to run martial arts programming for these programs, but had complete autonomy in terms of how the classes were run. So we get to do the schedule, curriculum, everything. So we are essentially running a full fledged school just under the community banner.
Right.
And so he had originally started the program in 2012, and they as COVID hit, everything had to shut down, especially being based out of community spaces, which was a shame because it really did grow the program to a great point. And they were literally 1 year off of getting their first black belt student. They were going into the black belt cycle as COVID hit, and they had to shut down. And I had the opportunity to reopen up the school in 2022, a little bit afterwards because we had to wait for COVID to settle down. And then we've been steadily growing ever since.
Yeah, no, the quality of students that you've been producing, they're pretty good quality. I mean, they've been to a few of my events now, both tournaments and the symposium. A couple of them came down a couple weeks ago for the stick fighting. Yeah, no, you're doing a really wonderful job with those students.
Thank you,
But
sir.
then, well, I also gave you, besides the sparring or the tournament challenge a couple years ago, I gave you the opportunity to grade with Grandmaster Bill Wallace in the Superfoot system. So maybe discuss a little bit, maybe like what did you find the difference between studying Muay Thai versus I'm gonna say American style kickboxing with Phil Wallace.
Yeah, it was what an amazing opportunity training with Grandmaster Wallace was, and having you help teach his system, getting us ready for that test and being able to meet him. Yeah, it was definitely switching gears between the styles. He has his super footwork, right? The way that you step up going to the kicks, a very lead leg focus, and it took a little getting used to. It was funny. I went from a bladed stance to a square stance, and then having to go back to a bladed stance. So it took a little bit getting used to making that change up in the footwork. But what I actually found, I actually really like the superfoot system for those that are going into the point style. Right, I actually think they actually go hand in hand. But he also has ways of throwing the punches more. Right, you won't see right good clean hand techniques and that are built into the kicking as well. So right as we throw the hook, you slide in the foot into something like a side kick or a hook kick. That was a cool skill set, right? Being able to work the footwork, going from transitioning from hands to feet and then back to hands and so on, right? So there was a lot of good takeaways from Grandmaster Wallace's system, and I mean, what an incredible opportunity to learn from a legend.
Yeah, I know. Again, just coming from Taekwondo, Olympic Taekwondo background, World Taekwondo, we tend to be more blatant anyway with very little
Mhm,
hand technique. So to have the ability to, okay, we're still able to fight from a blatant stance. Now we can utilize boxing skills to set up our blade stance kicking or lead line kicking and even spinning rear line kicks and so forth. It's like the superfoot system is a really nice add-on to like I would say Olympic style taekwondo or people that do a lot of point style where they're more bladed. But it also works really nicely for continuous sparring in general as well. And as I said, it's like you said, some people prefer more of a square stance or maybe a 45-degree stance and then having the ability to switch back and forth. I felt the same thing with the footwork. Like if you're so used to the way you use your footwork, and then
mhm,
Grandmaster Wallace had a very specific way of using his footwork. And when you're testing, obviously you have to do his footwork. And sometimes you get into the groove of things where you kind of go back to what you're normally used to doing.
mhm,
And then when you're testing, it's like, no, no, you gotta do it this way. But then when you go to spar, you can like what Grandmaster Wallace said, you just take from the system what works for you and implement it with what you're already doing. So it's not even though you're testing for a first degree, second degree, third degree, whatever belt, it's really an add on to whatever you're already doing. Because like one of the requirements is you already have to be a black belt in an inner martial arts system. So he's already realizing you need to have a good foundation in something. This is only an add-on. It's like an
mhm,
extra tool. It's extra strategy. Like he's really good at again being very open minded about that. Saying this is not the ultimate. This is what works for me. This can help work for you, but you also have to make it your own. I mean that's a really good attitude versus like some people like you discussed brought up earlier. Some people are very this is the way it needs to be. There's only one way of doing things,
mhm,
or they're not open minded. I do find that with I'm not trying to badmouth any other style, but I find like certain jiu-jitsu schools like they'll have a certain technique that has to be exactly their way. Meanwhile, there's like 20 different variations of doing that technique, but they'll say their technique's the only way. Or I find sometimes certain Muay Thai schools are very dogmatic about their approach to things. And I kind of find it interesting how sometimes the more modern martial art are more dogmatic in what they're doing versus traditional martial art tends to be a little bit more open-minded to learning from other styles. It's kind of funny.
mhm.
You think it would be the opposite? You think modern martial art would want to consume everything, but they tend to be very narrow-minded. Not all of them, but some of them. I'm gonna say some. Versus traditional martial arts, you would almost think that if you're a Shotokan karate guy, you're just doing Shotokan, or if you're an Aikido, you're just doing Aikido. But those guys were, willing to learn from other style so they can improve upon their style.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way I look at it is it's tools for a toolbox, right? The more tools you have in the toolbox, well, now you're more prepared for different types of jobs.
Mhm,
And some tools are better for certain jobs, right? Like you can't dispute Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is right one of the if the best art for learning ground self-defense. And that's the thing. There are certain styles and that prioritize in certain things, and that will be the best tool for that particular job.
mhm.
But the best thing you want to do if you want to be is to be able to again uh, take as much as you can from the opportunities to learn, and that's where having the open-minded approach matters. You can't get regimented, you can't get stuck in doing a certain thing a certain way, or you limit the potential of growth in your training.
Yeah, I find like if you let's say you're going to another school, or let's say you're going to a seminar and you're learning something specific from a seminar, uh, to like completely be open minded to what those instructors are saying. And
Mhm.
you may not agree with everything, but you should at
Yeah.
least try everything. And maybe you get one or two nuggets that are gonna work for you. And then like what Bruce Lee said, you learn take what's valuable and discard the rest.
Mhm.
So I know a few years back when I was at Quad Gym School, I was teaching a seminar on actually on the Superfoot system, and then one of the students afterward, one of the black kids came to me and they're kind of like trying to like disprove a certain technique,
Mhm.
like like jab and side kick, whatever, and like oh, like how your hand, like why are your hands down here versus should they be up here? And right, we can talk about all day about the different hand positions as far as. But anyway, he was being very disrespectful and like completely like it wasn't an open ended conversation. Like let's talk through it and explain it and let's explore, right? Like how a real conversation about technique. He was like flat out no, like no, whatever,
Mhm.
right? And okay, so let's go ahead. Well, let's move around a little bit. What you do now? And I kind of was moving around a little bit with them, and then bam, cracked him with a side kick. Not hard, but just enough that okay, I landed it, understood, and then he's like, yep. Like it's almost like he had to physically experience it for him to do it.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's the case, but I think but it came to me very close minded. I haven't seen him since. So whether he just went for his first degree and said screw it, or whether he was put off on me, I hope not. But it was just one of those things where like you should not go to an instructor that either you went to a seminar
Mhm.
or your instructor brought them in to their school to teach you something. So don't be so close minded
Mhm.
in what you're teaching. Like just again, learn from it, take what might work for you,
Mhm.
start it, and let's say you're completely against everything that they taught, just for whatever reason, that's fine. That's your
Mhm.
opinion. You're completely, perfectly allowed to do that, but
Yeah.
you shouldn't be coming up to somebody afterwards and like having a very close-minded conversation about it. And it's like,
Absolutely. Like one of the things that I always learned is like especially when it comes to thoughts is taking what can be perceived as a negative thought and reframing it. Right? Is if you go into this experience, and there's nothing wrong with having a preference and saying, okay, I got a chance to dabble with this, I got a chance to experience this. This is what I find works better for me. That's totally fine. That's healthy and natural. It only becomes a problem if you use that to stop from even being willing to listen or being able to experience and then make that decision. But I always look at it as right. There's an opportunity to reframe, even if it was like, you know what, I didn't necessarily enjoy or I didn't necessarily like the experience that I had. Well, it's an opportunity for me to see what I don't want to do going forward. I know I will now be focusing my time on this instead. I do
mhm,
it with people. People can be in the same boat as well. If you have
mhm,
someone who acts kind of a certain way, it's a reminder. Okay, I do not want to behave the way this person's behaving. It's a reminder. So now
yep,
I can use that experience I had with this person to frame how I want to behave and act around other people. So
mhm.
you can even take those negative ones and turn it into something to guide you in your practice. And that could be in anything. Martial arts is our focus today, but it could be really anything that way. So that
Yeah,
reframing mindset is important.
And you can also take that self-reflection sometimes, and we all do it. Sometimes we all said something a certain way. We didn't like how we reacted maybe or dealt with a certain situation. Then you can self-reflect, going, you know what? I did not like the way I handled that situation.
Mhm.
It's a good reminder how can I learn from it and work on being the person that I want to be, right? So it's not always an outside thing, but a lot of times it's a internal thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, we're coming up on the hour. This has been a fantastic look into your martial art as well as just a general discussion and a lot of different areas that you and I will have passion for. Yeah, and I just want to thank you for sharing your knowledge and your journey with everybody today.
No, oh, thank you very much, sir. It's an absolute pleasure being on your podcast and having another great conversation with you. And I just wanted to extend another big thank you for being my mentor throughout the years. You've been really uh, positively helping me improve as a martial artist, as an instructor, as a school owner. You reached out to me. You're one of the first people to reach out to me as soon as I moved out this way and had to basically start from scratch. And you welcomed me and provided these opportunities, and I'm just tremendously grateful and really glad that we've been able to build this friendship and are on all these working opportunities together with the events we have coming up.
Oh, for sure. And thank you for having faith and trust in me with these different things that we're doing. And I know we got lots of things that we're going to be doing over
Hmm.
probably many, many years. And no, I value the friendship. And I value you being a mentor or me being a mentor to you. But also, you're also teaching me some valuable things that I haven't experienced. And yeah, I think it's just a really good mutual relationship and friendship. So yeah,
Yes,
I just want
sir.
to thank you for being on today's podcast.
Oh, thank you, sir.